This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Mr. Chambers, thank you so much for joining us on this program.
It's my honor. And if you'd call me John, I would like that very much.
John it is.
Thank you.
Your first visit to India, how are you liking the experience so far, and are you sorry you didn't come earlier?
Well, I'm enjoying the experience very much. I like to tease. I'm sure my local team doesn't work this hard when I'm not here. The days are about 17 or 18-hour days. But the opportunity is truly exciting. If you look at where we are in India, while I've been to Asia probably 50 times over the last 15 years, this is the first time to your country. And I believe India is literally poised for a breakaway. This new economy, this internet economy, if you will, levels the playing field between countries, and it will be about the internet and education being the equalizers. So I think India is positioned, if we've judged this right, as an opportunity for us and for others in terms of a breakaway, but also to expand dramatically India's role in this global economy.
Well, that's been spoken about a lot right here in India. People seem to feel that IT is India's way to catch up with the world, perhaps overtake the world in areas like software. People keep wondering how much of that is just hype and how much of actual potential there is.
Well, if you look at what is going to occur in global investments, using the U.S. as an example, during the 60s and 70s, less than 10% of all capital investment went into IT. Today it's 60%. But it wasn't until the last 5 years that you really begin to get the productivity. So that's why many people viewed IT as an expense item rather than a productivity tool. In the last 5 years, the country productivity, which averaged during the 60s and 70s and 80s, maybe 1 to 1.5% per year, has averaged between 2 to 5%. And it's all about the internet, the applications that go with it. Having said that, there's going to be a shortage globally of over 2 million engineers on a global basis. Software engineering is one of the key elements that we have a requirement for in Cisco, and interestingly enough, 25% of my engineers, even in Silicon Valley, are of Indian background. So I think your country, because of its education system, is ideally positioned to really play a key role in this and has the potential to break away.
It's very strange you speak about the education system, because here in India we've spent the better part of the last 50 years trashing the education system and saying that it's terrible. Now, people like yourself seem to be now saying that it's not that bad after all.
Well, the education system for your very top engineers is the best there is in the world. And so if you look at engineering talent on a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 11. In terms
Better than the U.S.?
Yes, in terms of the number of graduates, the skill sets they've got. The U.S., in terms of the number of engineers that we're graduating, citizens who are graduating, it's actually decreasing. And out of our doctorate degrees, 47% of the doctorate degrees are non-U.S. citizens. So we've got to do a much better job in the U.S. in terms of generating engineers for ourselves, but I think also be very realistic. This is going to be a global economy. And companies like Cisco locate their workforce wherever the best educated workforce is, with the right infrastructure, with the right supportive government.
What I'm, I think, trying to ask is also, do you then share this vision of India as a potential IT superpower, or do you think there's still a lot more which needs to be done before India can start dreaming that big?
Well, I think both elements of your question are right. I think India has the potential to be a major IT superpower, with over 60% of capital spending going to IT today, up from just 10%, and it's all about networked IT, and now it's a requirement for applications that go on it. That's going to have to be generated somewhere in the world. I think India is the second largest English-speaking nation in the world behind the U.S. And if you look at the business opportunities in the industrialized world, they're almost unlimited for IT with the proper applications. So I think that is in very good shape. But you want to think about the internet and education with the right supportive government as being the two equalizers in life. If you don't build out an infrastructure to support those engineers, it's like having a super highway everywhere else in the world, but once you come into India, you're on secondary roads. You have to create the infrastructure of the future, which was equivalent to the highways, the railroads, the harbors, the airport of the past. And I think there's still a dramatic amount of work to be done in building out that infrastructure, not just for your elite educated group, but for the masses. IT for the masses, the internet, and education, I think, actually go hand in hand.
Seamus, John, if I can just sum up what I think you're saying is that India's got the talent, India's got the education, but India does not have the infrastructure. And unless it can fix the infrastructure, it's not going anywhere. Is that correct?
India has the first wave of talent. I think it's very important that distributed more broadly throughout the entire group of the masses. But it is in a position that it has the talent the world needs. And so as an exporter of that resource, rather than the people leaving the country, providing the infrastructure which allows them to work anywhere in the world, but from these central locations, I think India is very uniquely positioned. If you build out your infrastructure of the future, yes, I think that's the first major step.
So let's look at each of those again in turn. You're talking about having the talent.
Yes.
But do you think India also needs to improve its training centers? That's one of the initiatives you've launched on this particular trip.
Well, the thing that we learned in the U.S. was it isn't just about the top 1% of your population. It's about the issue as it relates to all of your citizens. And so in the U.S., we put in network academies into all 50 states, and then each of those states drove it down through almost all their secondary school system. It has generated in the last 5 years 100,000 trained Cisco network engineers. And they got 50 to 100% higher pay than if they had just finished their regular degrees. So that allows different degrees of skills, all the way up to your master's in engineering, but starting with a Cisco Network Associate Engineer. So I think what we did in terms of putting 34 academies into all of your states and union territories was a great first step. They will each train 10 within that area, and I'd like to see India set an objective of 100,000 students coming out of that program in the next 5 years, just like the U.S. did.